everyone. How do we know to act upon our heart's desire? What is it that our soul yearns to do? How do you know if it's your heart and soul talking or if it's your ego? We're going to talk about this and vibration and resonance and much, much more this afternoon. So in tonight's Reawaken You Thought, I was on Facebook last night. It was snowing here in Raleigh, which is a huge deal. And a friend of mine had posted, I know a lot of our viewers don't watch the news, but recently in the U.S. and West Virginia, where I grew up, there was a terrible chemical spill, and 300,000 people were without waters, and it's just been a mess. And so a friend of mine had posted, hey, there's another spill in Tyler County. And so I said, oh, this is just not what we need. And interesting, there was this man who I would use the term hijacked her post. Anyway, kept getting angrier and angry at her, and all she did was share this link, and he was going off about Obama and, solar energy and how that's not good. And I personally don't agree with that, but what I realized in the post, because I was texting my friend back and forth and we're kind of on the same wavelength, is, all his anger and vehemence and hatred that he was spewing at her and everyone else was really about himself. Because when you have that fight and that fight and that anger is within. And anytime someone annoys you, I'm going to say go within. If you're really cranky, go within. That fight is all about you. It's not about anyone else. So the next time if someone just, drives you nuts and you have that really reaction, I'm going to encourage you to go within. All right, I'm going to tell you about today's guest. Cynthia Zeki, PhD, RMT, is a gifted heart intuitive wisdom healer, teacher, speaker, author, and radio host who lives and works in the loving energy of the heart. Based in Chicago, she loves to help others discover the gentle joy, deep peace, and profound love in heart living through classes and her internet TV radio show, Wake Up Sunshine, on I Am Healthy Radio. She teaches people how to use the power of divine love and their heart's intuitive wisdom with their logic, experience, and creativity to not only achieve truer, deeper spiritual and personal understanding, but also to live a full, loving, and joyful life. She's a Reiki master teacher, and along with her husband Thomas, owns Spark of the Heart, LLC, a socially responsible business which produces heart-warming soups, salads, and sides. Welcome, Cynthia.
I'm so happy to be here.
It's great to have you back again. It's been a while. So let's get talking. I'm super excited because I think this is such an important topic, because I think if we were all living from our heart, doing what our soul wanted, we would live in a much different world.
Definitely. And we wouldn't get angry at Obama and those kind of things.
Exactly. Or someone that shares a link on Facebook. We'd be happier people.
Exactly.
So talk a little bit about vibration and resonance. Are they the same thing, or to you are they different terms? When you say that, what are you talking about?
When I talk about vibration and resonance, I'm talking about the feelings of our hearts. Vibration and resonance is energy, right? And the way I say they're different is the vibration is what we are, what we're doing at any particular moment in time. So if we're happy, everything is going our way, our vibration is high. If we're grumpy, if we get stuck in traffic, then our vibration lowers. And we have the ability to change that vibration through working with our heart or any other tools that we've learned to change our vibration. Now, to me, resonance is how our energy reacts to other people's or other situations' energy. And I divide those into two. We can have a smooth resonance, or we can have a discordant resonance. And it ties very strongly into what you were just talking about. You and your friend have a smooth resonance. It's easy for you to talk. You have feelings about things, and you feel comfortable with her. You're probably very happy when she calls or when you have a chance to connect. And with this guy who hijacked the Facebook conversation, you had a discordant resonance. There was something about him, that his views or whatever, that struck a chord within you. So as he struck that chord within you, you had a discordant. A discordant resonance is a great opportunity for us to change and to learn and to, like you said, go within.
Well, let me ask you this, because this has been happening to me a lot recently, enough for me to notice. And, I'm all about going within, but hearing you speak, it makes me wonder. So I have just been really lately feeling a lot of inauthenticity, and that's the best way that I can describe it. Now, a year ago, with these same people, I wouldn't have felt that. And it just has been, in the past couple of weeks, when I'm seeing a post or I'm hearing them talk, it just seems inauthentic to me. Do you have any thoughts about that? Does that just mean, and again, like there's no judgment, we all where we are, we're vibing, blah, 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 but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, clearly, as you are working to shift your vibration into a higher space, the people that you are feeling inauthenticity from have not inhabited that space yet, or maybe they won't, and so that's where you're getting the feelings of inauthentic. That's where you're feeling that they're inauthentic. I can't say that word. Inauthentic. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yes, inauthenticity. Got it.
That's the word. So where before it wouldn't have bothered you because your vibration was at their level, as you shift to a higher level, you notice that people who were your friends or your acquaintances, they don't resonate with you as strongly as they used to. You are noticing a discordant resonance with them.
Okay.
And if you can pick up a word like inauthenticity, then that means that is what's resonating with you, which means that maybe there's something in your life that you're not being authentic about, or that you have just noticed that you are living a fuller, more authentic life. It can be either one of those things. In any way, it's a chance for you to look at how and why those feel discordant to you now.
Absolutely. And I think I would say there's a little bit of both for sure. And that will bring up to the next point, because I think I'm kind of being not forced. I need to follow my heart. I need to follow my soul's desire, and I'm kind of slowly doing that. Maybe my heart and soul want me to pick up the pace, and I think that that's where it's coming from. So let's talk about that. Well, first of all, is it the same thing, following your soul and heart's desire? Is it the same thing, or are they different?
I believe when we say go within and all of this other stuff that we say to check in and when we meditate, I believe that our soul is in our heart. That when we're following our heart, when we're truly in our heart, that is what our soul, that's where our soul is. We say heart and soul. When you say my soul wants to do this, my heart wants to do this, to me they're very, very, it's the same feeling. So I kind of lump them in together. When we talk about that small still voice within, it refers to you're not going into your throat, you're not going into your tummy, you're not going down to your toes, you're going into your heart. And I like the physicalness of it. I mean, if you put your hand on your heart and you have feelings of love, compassion, gratitude, which are the feelings that center there, a lot of times you can physically feel it. I've been reading a lot of information from the Institute of Heart Math. They've done studies that show that the biomagnetic field around the heart is huge, and it can communicate with other people. I've studied the work of Henry Reed, who does something called the intuitive heart discovery process. There's just so much evidence, and that when we're talking about our heart and our soul, it's really in our heart.
So we mentioned earlier when I was reading your bio, you do heart-centered living. So can you talk a little bit about that? And I'm gonna I know we never assume and have that little never assume, but we're not perfect. So I'm going to take a guess that we can't live heart-centered lives 100% of the time, unless maybe we're someone like the Dalai Lama that's reached a certain level. But you're the expert. I'll have you talk to that.
Well, the beautiful thing about heart living is that when we consider about emotions and things in our heart, we have compassion, we have love, we have gratitude, and we have forgiveness. And so when I say I live in my heart, it means if I do something that, I'm a human being having a human experience, and everything that I do is an opportunity for me to learn or to grow or to share compassion, gratitude, love, and that kind of thing. So if I do something that's not within that realm, then I forgive myself, and I can forgive myself pretty easily. That's the beautiful thing about being in your heart. You don't have the polarity. You don't have the should and shouldn't that you have when you're living a ego-based or brain-based existence. So when I say I live from my heart, our Spark of the Heart, heartwarming soup, salads, and sides, our products are packaged for us by the developmentally challenged. The ingredients in there are 100% natural. There's no artificial anything. There's no preservatives. And we also donate product to help feed those in need. So everything that I do, I live from my heart to the best of my ability. And if I'm not there, then I forgive myself and learn the lesson, and I move on.
Talk a little bit about forgiveness, if we could go into more detail, because I find a lot of people don't forgive themselves, really hold themselves to a high standard. So what do you think about that? What would you say to someone who struggles with forgiving themselves or maybe with forgiving others?
People who can't forgive themselves don't love themselves. It's that simple. And people who can't forgive others don't love themselves because they're looking for condition. Also, they're doing forgiveness as a brain exercise rather than as a heart exercise. So when we forgive from our brain, we want to have a reason why. So I'll give you an example. I've been in, let's just say, relationships that weren't in my best interest. I had many of them. And I always forgave the person I was in the relationship with by using a reason. Oh, well, he was abused as a child, or his mother didn't love him, whatever. I always could come up with a reason. But that didn't lend to, it led to me still making the mistake over and over again. So when I turned it towards me, I realized that I had a lot of forgiveness to do on a heart and soul level of myself and of the people around me and them, and then I could truly forgive and move on. So it's a heart forgiveness doesn't mean that you don't need to have a reason. You just do it. So Edwene Gaines, who is a spiritual teacher, I love her exercise for forgiveness. She says every day, and actually forgiveness is a very high spiritual practice. And she does, and I do this twice. I do this at night before I go to bed. I go over my day, and anybody who I had outside of my heart, whether it was the person who cut me off in traffic or my daughter being flippant to me or whatever, and I had a moment with them, they were outside of my heart. I surrounded them in a love ball, a light, and I felt them go back into my heart, and that gave me peace. So it's really not about anybody else. It's completely about you.
I love that you talk about that. I've never heard it explained that way, that being unable to forgive, whether it's myself or someone else, has to do with loving yourself. So talk a little more, because I would say besides forgiving, I think a lot of us don't love ourselves. I mean, I'm listening to you talk about relationships, and, I get that. That used to be my life. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to work on myself. And then I ended up meeting my husband. I'm super happy. I couldn't have asked for anyone better and wouldn't have done it differently. But a lot of us don't love ourselves. So
exactly.
What are
and
your...
that's what
Go ahead.
That was my experience too. I mean, I've been married 3 times. This is my third and final husband. Every night before I go to bed, I thank God I have him, and when I wake up in the morning, it's the same thing. And this was after 4 years of working on myself and learning to love myself, because before I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I didn't love myself that much. There was just so much. All of my knowing of myself and value of myself was based on what other people thought of me. Now, I have my PhD. I was a professor, and people have some respect for that. And so as a professor, I could love myself in that way. As a mother, I could love myself in that way. But the fundamental core of who I was, 1, I didn't really understand who I was, and 2, I didn't love myself. So it really is a practice of one thing that I did, and it takes a brave soul to do this, is I stood in the mirror naked and looked at myself and said, I love you. So many women have body images. Yeah. I've always had body image problems. And just starting with talk about being authentic, is just looking at yourself and repeating over and over, like an affirmation Louise Hay does, is saying you love yourself. And that's the way you start. It really takes consciousness to do that.
It does, and I've done that too. It is not very easy for sure.
No, but it's worth it, because if you don't love yourself, then you have so many expectations on everyone else to love you. And that's conditional love, not unconditional love. Conditional love is never satisfying, never.
So this makes me wonder, what thoughts do you have with people out there raising children? Because, we're all born as babies. We don't hate ourselves. We put our fingers in our mouth and our toes in our mouth, and then somewhere along the way, life happens. So what are your thoughts for people to raise kids? What would you have any suggestions for them?
My daughter, I have one child, and, you swear as a parent you're going to do everything that you can to make your child happy and whole, and then you realize interferes. I think the biggest thing that you can do to raise a happy, healthy child is to accept that child as they are and not try to put what you want them to be into their existence. Which is really hard to do. But when I was raising my daughter, I always tried to be behind her, to catch her, and to have her stand back up rather than direct her too much into what I felt she needed to do.
All right, great advice. Thank you. So, how do we know if something is our heart's desire or if it's, say, the ego coming from fear? Because the ego will say, you know what, have that 9-to-5 job, the steady paycheck, the golden handcuffs. But the heart might be saying, you know what, I want to go write poetry, or I want to go sail around the world, or whatever. How do we learn to distinguish between the ego and the heart?
Well, what I know is that you don't have to necessarily, well, you know that. I mean, if it's based on fear, you can feel it in your body. If it's based on a desire, you can feel that in your body too. It's really paying attention to your body clues. And, you know, if something is fear-based, what does your body do? It tenses up, you feel palpitations. It's not a peaceful, relaxing place. If you're sitting on the couch dreaming, oh, I really want to sail around the world, that has a totally different resonance within yourself than a fear-based idea. Now, the beautiful thing about heart living is that it doesn't have to be a this or a that. A lot of us have 9-to-5 jobs that we feel that we need to do. You know, when you're living from your heart, or anything really, it doesn't mean you have to take this great big giant leap and give everything else up. The beautiful thing about heart living is that you take a step at a time, and you're open to whatever is provided. It's about keeping your vibration as high as you can, no matter where you are, to allow the universe to give you what your heart desires, because that is the purpose of us being here. It's not something you have to look for. It's not something you have to search for. It's something you have to pay attention to, take small right action as you can, and then be open to allow the universe to provide.
Excellent point. And I just wanted, your lights went out. So I don't know if we had something behind you, whatever went out, just an FYI.
Yeah, do you want that back on, or is that okay?
Yes, that was helped.
DJ, turn that light back on.
So that helped, because you kind of went dark there.
Turn the light back on. The light that you had on in the bedroom, turn it back on.
So we're good. We'll get that back. I think that's an excellent point about not having an either or, because I know that I can sometimes get stuck with that. I guess then I would want to know if you have any thoughts. Well, my first thing was, this popped in my head. So the Facebook conversation last night, how I handled it, I hope if this is an example of staying in my heart, was I just was like, hey, you know, give her a break. I was very light-hearted about it. Do you know what I mean? I came from a place of love. I wasn't like, dumbass, you know, would you quit giving her a hard time or whatever? And, you know, I didn't fight fire with fire, so to speak. But when we're living in our heart desire, then that's also helping us raise our vibration, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, and another thing about living from your heart is knowing what is yours to do and what is not yours to do. And that's a really, really, really important skill to develop. So before I react to anybody on Facebook, I think, is this person going to get it in the tone that I intended?
Mm-hmm.
What is my reason for doing this? Is it out of love? Is it out of I want to support my friends? You know, just doing that little mental thing in your mind can really help you live more authentically from your heart, because sometimes a reaction is more an ego-based head thing than a heart thing. So a first thing to do is, you know, is this mine to do? Why is it mine to do? What do I do from my heart to make it successful?
I think that's excellent. I think it's so would maybe a question be to step back and what would my heart or what would love do?
Yeah, that's, you know, it's so funny because I'm human. I get frustrated. I'm not going to lie. But when I say, what can I do? A lot of times what comes in my heart is just love them. Just send them love. And a lot of times that's enough.
I think if you can do that. The other thing I've learned to ask myself is, what will bring me peace? Exactly. We had an incident here on the show, and we had someone, and anyway, who just was so hypocritical. I've removed the videos. I removed any mention. I made them private on YouTube because I couldn't. They were angry months after the fact about how they looked, and I'm like, you saw it, like you had all this opportunity. There were, nothing was. They didn't own anything, and it was a principle. And so someone said to me, "What would bring you peace right now?" And I'm like, to not deal with it anymore. And so that was my response. And you know what? I'm done. But it brought me peace. But I still felt that I was being authentic and coming from a place of love. Like not fighting back or whatever. Yeah.
Right. And now you have to forgive her.
Yes.
Or him.
Yes. Now, how do we know? So I'm trying to. I thought it was really interesting about how you tacked it. It doesn't have to be an either or. You can still work a 9-to-5 job and still live from your heart. But I think our society, at least here in America, doesn't teach us that. So What would you say? I mean, I think of a lot of artistic people, very creative types who, again, might have a talent, might be writing or painting, but they're not able to make their living doing that. So what would you say to them?
The attitude shift has to come within first. I'll give you an example. We have this bean business. My husband does most of it, but he can't do everything. He does a lot. And for the past year, I've been angry because I want him to do everything so I can focus on my healing work. And we walked into the year with things picking up, and I knew that it was unfair of me to expect him to run this entire business by himself. And I worked in my heart. I sent him love. I sent the bean business love. And actually, I'll tell you this exercise in just a second after I finish the story. And I just sat with it. Again, what is mine to do? And I realized that I was using this bean business as an excuse. I wasn't really doing what I wanted to do. I wasn't ready. I don't know what was going on. But I said, I can do this part with love. I can face it with happiness and joy at a higher vibration, the highest vibration, with gratitude, with knowing that everything in the universe is in divine order and divine time. And once I get this all set and organized, then things will open up. And it's only been 2 weeks, and I can tell you already it has. I spend maybe 4 or 5 hours a week doing bean business. He feels so much better. Our relationship is wonderful. Better than, it's always good, but now it's just wonderful. And of course, I had 3 new clients this week because I kept my vibration in the space to receive all of the wonder that the world has for me. And who knows, maybe from this bean, it's true, from the bean business, which seems so different from my energy healing, I've gotten energy clients from that. So you never know where opportunity is going to be. It's going to be where you are when you are open to receive it and your vibration is high enough to receive it.
Now you had said, I'd love for you to do an exercise with us, and I want to tell everyone that's watching, of course, this is all recorded, so you can listen to it again, but I always think that that's great to give people a tool. So is this to raise our vibration, open up our heart? What are we doing?
All of the above.
Okay,
so what I want you to do is just close your eyes for a minute and to get into your heart space. The easiest way to do this is, there's a couple ways. One thing I like to do is I imagine in my mind's eye a beam of light coming up from my heart. And then I imagine that I'm jumping on that beam of light and spinning down into my heart space. I know that if I put my hands over my heart lightly, I can also feel the energy there, which draws my attention down to my heart. Then from my heart, I set out a beam of light to whatever my situation, confusion, frustration is. In this case, it was the bean business. So I had a visual in my mind of the bean business. Actually, it was just our Spark of the Heart logo. And I sent a beam of light to that. Now, it can be whatever color you want. It can be pink, it can be green, it can be gold, it can be sparkly. Whatever comes to you, just imagine that light going out to whatever it is that's bothering you. So I sent that light there, and I surrounded the business in that light. And I just held it there until all my frustration and anger and everything else about the business was replaced by that that loving, quiet light. And then I brought that light back into my heart. And then I was in a place of neutrality and love with the business and with my heart. And from there, I could see very clearly what was going on. First of all, I felt an immense amount of compassion for my husband because he's running around 24/7. I go to the Virgin Islands and teach. I go to Detroit and teach. I get away from it. He stays home. So immediately there was compassion for the hard work he does. Then followed that was gratitude for the hard work that he does. And I'm allowed to go and travel and do this other stuff that I want. Then after that compassion and that gratitude and love, and doesn't have to be your husband. This can be anybody you're working with or your job itself. I could see, again, I asked myself, what is mine to do? What can I do here that will bring my heart peace and joy and help? Compassion and gratitude and service are very strong, heart-centered feelings. And so if you turn your job or your frustration into how can I be of service, that immediately feels better and puts you in a place of peace and of joy. And in that place, I could see what he really needs is me to kind of be like a secretary and organize what he needs to do each week. And I am good at that. I can do that quickly. We can have a little meeting and be done. We could do that Tuesday morning. So I did that. I wrote out a schedule. We touch base a couple times a day or a week, and everything is running more smoothly. With my frustration and my anger before, being up in my head about it and blaming in a place of blame instead of a place of openness, there was no possible way I could have seen that.
All right, I like that. That's fantastic. Can you, by doing this, I have a thought. Is someone doing this exercise, so say they start doing this, as they raise the vibration of others, it helps raise, as they raise the vibration of themselves, it helps raise the vibration of others, correct? Or am I wrong?
Absolutely. That's what resonance is about, because just in the case of me and my husband, as I was feeling better and treating him better, of course he was feeling better and treating me better too. That's what resonance is. When you're vibrating high, well, there's some people who will try to pull you back down, but a lot of times it's finding that balance where you can help bring them up. And it's lovely.
Now, what would you say to someone, again, everything goes back to Facebook. I'm thinking of someone in particular that I went to high school with, and I tried to offer some advice, but this woman is just in a really tough time. And I can tell by her posts that she just is stuck in this negative, awful groove. So for someone that's really struggling, having gratitude might be a stretch. I mean, or is that what you say? What would you say to them to help open their heart and raise their vibration?
Well, no one can do that. I never give anybody advice unless they ask, because they're not going to receive it.
Right.
And that's just me hitting my head against the wall, and that doesn't feel good. So what I do, though, is I send them as much love as I can. Every night before I go to bed, I'm a Reiki master. But even if you don't send Reiki, just send love from your heart to everyone you know who's having a trouble. And I'm telling you, this works even with people that you are having trouble with. There's a person who has to be in my life, but who I have trouble loving her. And what I do every night is I send her love, and I'm wishing her the best. And now I have no reaction one way or another to her. And that's the best way to help someone who, especially if they're not asking you for help, is to really send them love and compassion.
But what one step could they take if someone's listening that they could do themselves and feel really stuck in life? What would you say to them? If you're feeling
stuck in life and you're listening to your program, I say you are reaching out to get unstuck. So the first thing you can do is one little baby step for yourself. The problem with being stuck is we think of every great big thing we have to do. Lose 15 pounds, change jobs, all of this stuff before we can be happy. And all of that's just conditions we set on ourselves. So something that you can do right now to get unstuck is do something for yourself. If it's making a cup of tea, if it's washing your face, if it's stepping outside into some fresh air, whatever it is, that's the first step towards getting unstuck.
Now, since you do Reiki, how does that affect the heart? Or when you work with people, do you open the heart automatically? Is that kind of a general thing you do with Reiki?
Yeah, I work with Reiki and also in the Akashic records, and I have special attunements that I received um, that were given to me. Um, there's different symbols. They're Chinese symbols that I use in my healing work. And so when I do Reiki and I do an energetic healing, it is always in the energy of the heart, because a lot of times um, people will have figured it out in their head, but they can't move on because the emotional energy is still stuck. Something you can figure out as an adult does not remove the pain, the frustration, the decisions, the ideas that we created as a young child or even as a somebody in our 20s. So when you go into the heart and in that heart energy, you're at the energetic level of when that event happened, and then you can remove it more easily.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned earlier, you were talking about trusting in divine timing. Now, I know that, I can look back and say, oh, now I get it. Like, I met my husband and he was the right guy for me, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of us struggle with that. Trust. And where do you think that comes from? Why we don't trust, and maybe how we can trust more?
Well, because we feel we need to be in control. Not having trust or faith or patience is a fear-based reaction. And I know it's a big struggle. Patience and faith, or trust, whatever you want to call it, is my biggest challenges at all times. How I allow myself to relax into that is to knowing that if I want one thing, the whole universe has to conspire to make that happen. So it's not just me; it's everything else in the universe that needs to be in alignment for my one thing to happen. One of my favorite quotes that I tell myself all the time is a quote from Edgar Cayce, and um, he says, "All prayers are answered. Just don't tell God how and when to do it."
I like that.
Yeah. So patience is very high spiritual practice. Faith is very high spiritual practice. But if you can't, that that's where the space of miracles are, because it's outside of our intelligent knowing, our left brain knowing. It's 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 beyond what we as in our experience can understand. That's where miracles occur. That's why openness and keeping your vibration is really, really important.
So then, because you were talking earlier, control is fear-based then.
100%. 100%. And presence, all these spiritual practices that everybody talks about, being present is huge. When in my morning meditation, the question I ask it at night, I say, please guide me to what is mine to do tomorrow. In the morning when I get up in my meditation, I ask, what is mine to do today? And that's what I try to do. It doesn't mean you don't have goals. It doesn't mean you don't have desires, but it means that you take every day, every minute as at a time, because that's how other things can happen. When you're too focused on what you want, then you've already got blinders on, and you can't see a bigger picture. An example of this is someone who's looking for a partner, and they have this nice long laundry list of what this person needs to be. Well, maybe that person is what you think you need, but it's not what's the best thing for you. And Mr. or Miss Wonderful could be knocking on your door, but you're sitting at the window with your list. And so what we think we need, what we have, isn't always the best for us. A lot of times it's not the best for us, because we base what we think we want to do, how we live our life, what our partner is, on the experiences that we've had in the past, instead of what our heart's desire is right here, right now.
I have to laugh because I was one of those list people. And,
me too.
Well, but I mean, now to my credit, there were things like honesty, had integrity, things that I felt I had to offer. But I laughed because 2 weeks I had like 6 feet to 6'3" tall. My husband. So 2 weeks before, 2 weeks before I met my husband, I took off my height requirement, and he's shorter than I am.
See?
But I wouldn't trade him in for anyone. I love him to pieces. So I understand that. So I think that's a great example. And talk about that a little bit about relationships. I have found I used to be allergic to cats. Met my husband. He has a cat. All of a sudden, I'm not allergic to cats. And so because of that, I didn't have any animal growing up. So between my husband and Joey, it's amazing to me how much it's opened my heart and just continues to open my heart. So maybe talk a little about our relationships or animals and how they can contribute to that.
Oh, animals are the perfect example of unconditional love. We have a big fat cat. Her name is Una because she only has one eye. And every night before I go to bed, she comes in, because I meditate then. She comes in and wraps herself around my arm and starts purring. She's saying, okay, it's time to start meditating. I think that, some pet communicators say that animals are the reflections of who we are and what we're doing. But I think it's just a great example of unconditional love. And it's interesting to me how your cat allergy left once you met your husband and started living from your heart. Research has shown that when your heart is healthy, when you are in a place of love and compassion and gratitude, your immune system functions at a much higher rate. So when you are in love, there's scientific studies that show that when you're in that great space, that space of high vibration, your immune system functions better, and you no longer needed that allergy. That allergy no longer served you at all.
Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't know that. Hopefully we can work on my hearing next. That's the next big thing so I've got some work to do to raise my vibration. And I'm just curious, because animals love us unconditionally, do they vibrate higher? Because I'm laughing because whenever I got worked on, Joey loves higher energy. He just is like attracted to that. And so since your cat is there something about animals that's the unconditional love? What is it about that?
Yeah, and they don't have all this thoughts in our heads. It's just like kids. I teach classes for kids and I teach classes for adults. I would rather teach kids. Well, I don't want to say that. Teaching kids is so much fun because they don't have all the goop that we put into our heads about what is and is not possible. Same way with animals. They're not operating from an ego base, so they don't have they don't have to cut through the crap that we have to in order to get into a nice space.
Okay. All right. Good to know. The other thing I want to talk about is truth. So you mentioned the soul's truth. So
yes.
How do we know we're coming from our soul's truth? Because my truth is going to be different from yours truth.
Well, when you're truly in your soul's truth, nobody else's truth matters but your truth. So your truth is what makes you happy, and what makes you joyful, and what it comes very naturally to you. I'll give you an example. I just had a client yesterday, a young woman, and she's very conscious, very much into helping others, and she was in school to become a natural path, maybe, a natural doctor. And she had completed a year and a half, and then she just felt this big block. She wanted to stop. And her advisor said, if you're feeling this block, then you need to maybe stop and take some time off and see if this is truly what you want to do. So when I worked with her in our appointment, I found that she was extremely creative. And I said, I'm feeling watercolor here and pottery and writing. And she says, oh, yeah, I used to love to do that. And I said, well, why aren't you doing that now? Well, I thought that I needed to do business, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, what's stopping you from doing both of those? And so we explored her energy and explored her heart, and she's going to teach art in some form or fashion. And she was just practically flying out of the office because she was so happy. So I would say anything that you have a natural aptitude for, anything that makes it easy for you, anything that makes you just feel good and smooth, that brings a smooth resonance for you, that's your heart's truth. It's a feeling. It's not, your heart's truth is a feeling more than anything else.
Now, I want to remind everyone, if you have a question for Cynthia, you can chat it. I'm happy to ask, or call in at 919-518-9773 or Skype Computers 2K Voice. But passions and following your heart can also be fluid, can it? Because I'll give an example. So when I lived in Los Angeles, I wanted to be a screenwriter. It almost happened. I almost sold a script. It didn't, and I was pretty disillusioned after that. Then I came out here, ended up getting introduced to Amnon. Now, my personality in the past, I still write. I really enjoy writing and do various forms, and that makes me happy. But I would have never been too shy. I would have never done a show like this. I would have I'm a behind-the-scenes person. I was. And so I've completely grown, changed. I think it's a positive thing. So our passions and following our heart can be fluid. True?
Well, how I like to think of that is as unfoldment. As the more comfortable you are the more you experience and the more you unfold your soul, the more skills and ideas that you have. I'm the same way. I'm actually pretty shy, but with my teaching and what I do, I was a professor, I was a massage therapist, I'm the bean queen, I'm doing this kind of work now, and all of it is part of my soul's unfoldment. So yeah, vibration, we are energetic beings. Our souls are energetic, and energy is fluid. Energy moves. So I think that that's the biggest favor you can do to yourself is never say, oh, this is the way I am, because it's not true. You always have the opportunity to shift and to change.
I think that's something, the inauthenticity that I'm struggling with now, because I'm letting go of a part of who I am and something I've done for a while that's part of my identity, for lack of a better word, for somewhat, and so I struggle with that. So what advice would you have for me or anyone else that's struggling with that?
Well, identity is something that how we define ourselves based on how others perceive us as ego based. I don't like to bash ego because it's an important thing. And identity shifts. So love yourself, be patient with yourself, and don't expect a huge leap right away, because that's hard, and then you start getting angry at yourself. So patience and gentleness and baby steps are huge and important in heart living. That's where shift and change happen. Very few of us are able to make grand leaps off of cliffs with no wings or little wings, you know. Very few of us are able to quit a job without being financially set, you know. But on the other hand, if you lose your job, then maybe that's the universe telling you, yeah, it's time to do something different, you know.
Now, I've heard a lot of people my age, younger, older, say, oh, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. So what are your thoughts? How can they figure out what their soul or living heart-based, how can they find that out?
Play. Do something creative. That's what I would say. I would say, and go back to your childhood, whatever it was that you like to do. And then in that point, in that place, that's where inspiration can come. Inspiration is how you find out. And also pay attention to what is coming around you. What makes you happy? What doesn't make you happy? It's taking the thing about life is you can't figure it out and then take action. You have to take action and then allow life to happen. So that's why I keep on saying about baby steps. You take a small step and then life can happen for you. Our bean business, I had this idea 10, 12 years ago. Couldn't do it by myself. It's all been serendipitous. It's all been synchronous. You can go to the website and read the story. But we didn't have a clue what we were doing. And just taking these little baby steps, we have a real life business now. And so it's just not trying to figure it out in advance, but taking a step to see how it resonates with you.
But I also think once you follow the path you're meant to, kind of the universe, God, whatever your term is, steps in and meets you.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't even like the word path, because that implies that there's a straightforward thing. And life rarely is that. I use the word unfoldment. The more I unfold, the bigger my energy is, the bigger my scope is, and the more I'm able to attract different things that speak to my soul and speak to my soul's truth.
Talk a little bit about when we're vibrating higher and living a heart-based life, maybe for people who don't understand that. Can you talk about, as you say, give personal examples, or from clients, as you opened up more, unfolded, what changes happened in your life? What did you bring in, and maybe what was let go?
Oh, I brought in peace and love and contentment, that no matter what is happening outside of me, I am peaceful. And I didn't have peace until I was probably 40 something. So, being able to let go of control and knowing that everything is in divine order and divine time is wonderful. And when you are in your heart, then you're out of your head, and you can pay attention to others more. I can give you a great example. The winter here in Chicago has been brutal. We've had so many days in single temperature, in single digits. It's 5 today, it's 10 today. We've had 40 inches of snow. This hasn't happened in many years. And the last time it happened, I wasn't in the heart space I am now, and I would have suffered from seasonal affective disorder. I would have been on medication. I would have wanted to kill somebody. I would have been frustrated that there was never any place to park my car, I would have spent December, January, February, March miserable, miserable. And now I don't, So it's cold, I bundle up, or I stay in when I can. It's the snow outside. It can be beautiful if I put my direction that way. And we talk about green lights all the way home. I just send it out to the universe. I want a nice parking space on my block when I come home, because I live in the city. We have on-street parking. And I send it out. I'm at that high vibration. And 9 times out of 10, I have a parking space, and I don't have to worry about it. So that's just a very quick and clear example how having faith, having love, having trust allows you to be at that vibration for miracles to happen.
We have a question for you in chat that I want to ask, but the reference about the green lights, when we were talking earlier, when I left the show last week, our guest was talking about consciousness, and I think we were vibrating pretty high, and I hit green lights all the way home from the studio, and I don't think I've ever I've been in Raleigh 8 years, and I don't think I've ever hit green lights going from point A to B ever. All green lights. Susie asks, I feel like I'm vibrating so much higher when I'm being creative in any way, but especially working with my hands. You have any thoughts for Susie?
Go for it, Susie, because when you are working with your hands, you're out of your head. It's that simple. Whenever you're doing, when you're doing something creative, you're not using your left brain. You're in your, and I don't like that left brain, right brain dichotomy, but that's what we know. So we think of left brain as our logic, our experience, our right brain as our creativity. Think of when you're doing something creative, for me, when I'm cooking, or if you're creating with your hands, you look at the time and you say, wow, where did that time go? That's because you're in that meditative spiritual time. That's when you're in that heart time, when you're not in your head. So yes, that's where happiness is, definitely. That's when you're in your heart.
Now, you've mentioned meditation a couple times, and you have a meditation practice. So talk a little bit about that, why you do that, and how that's helped you.
When I talk about my meditation practice, I go into my heart space in solitude and in quiet. Well, sometimes I listen to music. I like music. I like meditation music. How that helps me, it helps me to be present and to focus my day. And when I say meditation, some of it's active, where I'll do the forgiveness exercise, where I'll listen to what is mine to do. Meditation helps me to stay centered and to stay grounded and not fall back into what I call that left brain hurricane of worry and all that other stuff. That's what that meditation does for me. It helps keep my vibration high.
Talk a little bit about worrying, because worrying's kind of wasted energy is what I'd say, and it took me a long time to figure that out, because if I was worrying about the future, I have no control over it. So,
well, worrying is more than that. Worrying is dumping a big old negative wet. The universe operates in a place of neutrality, which means that it doesn't have the judgment of good or bad. So whatever it is that you're occupying your mind and your heart with, that's what the universe is going to give you. So if you're worrying about something, whatever that thing is, that's what the universe is going to give you, because that's what you're presenting to it. So worry is absolutely a complete waste of time. It's better to have a positive thought to replace that worry with. I remember one time I was driving back from Florida with my daughter. She went to school there. She had a raggedy old car. It was winter, but we always had a good time. We talked. We listened to Taylor Swift. It was just a good time. The closer we got to Chicago, we would get these texts and phone calls from people saying, "Oh, be careful, blah 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 blah," and all of a sudden, it felt like some big old heavy, damp wool blanket was dropped in the car because of everybody's worry. It wasn't anything. Hey, prayers for you, sending angels to help you home. It was like, boy, just be so depressed that you don't want to do anything but look at the road. And that was it didn't feel right. It felt horrible. It felt heavy. It felt negative. And that is what worry is. It's inviting the universe to give you more of what you don't want.
All right. Duly noted. But I would think after our conversation today that really there's either love or heart-based, as you say, or fear. I mean, because anger is really about fear, isn't it? Wouldn't you say? I mean, that those are our choices?
Yes. It's 100% about love or fear. Love is in the state of God, in the state of the universe, in the state of grace, compassion, gratitude. All of that good state is love. Fear is anger, frustration, worry, unhappiness. And so it's the choice. You boil it down to that, and every minute you make a choice. Am I going to be fearful, or if I'm going to be in a state of fear, am I going to be in a state of love? And the more the more often you choose to be in love and take responsibility for that, the more of a habit it becomes, and the easier it is to stay in that at all times or at most times.
Do you have maybe a suggestion for an affirmation that someone could say if maybe they struggle with being negative or worrying a lot? Is there one maybe that you use?
One of my go-to affirmations is, I do my best and give God the rest. Because then I don't expect myself to always do more, and then I'm not disappointed if something doesn't happen, because I know that I've done what I can do, and everything else is up to the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And another one is just, I love myself. I don't say this one so much anymore, I think, because I've integrated it. But for years I said, I love myself fearlessly and unconditionally. And as I said that, then I could look at any situation and say, am I doing this fearlessly and unconditionally? And if it wasn't, then I didn't do it.
Okay, excellent. I just think that's, I know I slip often, not as bad as I used to, but I'm laughing as we're having this conversation because I write a spiritual blog, a guest blog post for someone, and my next one's going with the flow. And, I kind of crack up because I was a super control freak. This is a great example. You were on the show a while back, and I sent you all the questions I was going to ask you, and da-da-da-da-da. Now, part of that, I did that. I do research. I read up on people if we're going to talk about a subject matter. But the other reason I did that was about control and fear, because God forbid, what happens if I have a brain fart and people are watching? Oh my God, what will I do? Or what if no one asks questions? And you know what? The universe gave that to, we had someone in Slovenia, their power went out, so it took her 5 minutes to get back on. All these things. I had one guest really early on who I'd ask her a question, she'd say yes and not elaborate. But that, that was the entire hour. So, the universe said, okay, if you want control, we're going to throw stuff your way. And so what I've moved from is being like, I didn't send you any questions. I just said, okay, I have a couple thoughts, but we're just going to go with the flow. And I think it make it more conversational, because I think that the viewers have a better experience trusting that you will get the information that people out there listening need to hear, and moving back from that, I'm going to try to control everything in my life.
Yes. And it's, I just want to say one more quick thing. Energy moves in spirals. And so I love your example, because we think that we're going to have everything prepared, and then the universe comes back and gives you a little kick in the butt before it moves you up to a higher vibration, to make sure that you're serious about the shift that you're going to do. And to be 100% honest, Julie, I was saying, Julie didn't send me any questions. What are we going to talk about? And then I had to say, you know what? All is in divine order, trust and faith, and it'll all be fine. So. And
it all was fine. It was always really good. So what question, I want to ask you this. You gave us a great exercise, and I know one person came in late. They didn't realize they were watching last week's show, but you gave us great exercise earlier. But I'm all about taking action. Again, we can go with the flow, but I want people to move forward in their life. I want them to unfold. I like your term. I will give you credit, but I'm going to steal that. So what could they do to unfold more, to reawaken their brilliance? What action could they do?
Every time they have a grumpy thought or a negative thought in their head, acknowledge it and say, okay, I don't need you right now. Put it off to the side, and then find one thing to be grateful for right there, right now. And you get into that habit, and the world will be a beautiful place.
All right, outstanding. Now tell us about how people can find more information. If we have any last questions, too, feel free to chat, 919-518-9773, Skype, Computers 2K Voice. And reminder, everything's recorded, so as soon as it's over, we'll have it up fairly soon. You'll be able to watch it again if you missed it. Tell us more about how people can reach you, if you have any upcoming classes, about your bean business. Tell us all that good stuff.
Everything's on www.sparkoftheheart.com. It has the bean business, and it has my healing practice. That's going to be split soon, but right now it's all together. I have the workshops the classes that I teach on the events page, retreats and classes page. I am more than happy to travel to do an intensive 3-day to a week series of classes. I'm doing that in the Virgin Islands at the end of February. I know it's a hard life, but someone has to go into it. And yeah, and feel free to email me with any questions. I'm on Facebook. I'm also wrote a chapter on heart living in this book. I don't know if you can see it.
Yep, hold it still. Okay, Extraordinary You. Okay.
And the editor is Vanessa Talbot. It's a great book. It's not just my story, but 10, 11 incredible women. I feel very blessed and humbled to be able to share this with them, this writing with them. And, yeah, that's neat.
Can they find that on your website?
It would probably be best to somewhere maybe.
Okay.
We're shifting our website around right now, so it's a little bit messy. But it's called Extraordinary You, and it's available on Amazon.
Amazon, everything's available on Amazon. Fantastic.
And there's also a Facebook page called Extraordinary You.
Okay.
So that's available too.
All right, fantastic. Well, again, that's Spark of the Heart. I wrote that in the chapter room. If anyone has needs to find Cynthia, and if not, if you ever get lost or can't find anyone, always email us here. We're happy to connect you with guests so you can find them. And I want to remind everyone that's listening, we have our next online class, Tuesday, February 4th, on how to consciously parent. We've got a panel of experts and parents. I'm very passionate about this. Again, part of why I do the show, if we're parenting better, we're going to raise better kids, we're going to have a better world. And so if you're looking for alternative ways to raise your children, to have them happy and healthy, we're going to give you a body, mind, spirit perspective on that. If you go to reawakenyourbrilliance.com, you can find more information. Again, that's Tuesday, February 4th. It will be recorded. If you can't make it live, you can send in questions, and we'll get you the course afterwards. But if you're looking for an alternative, please check that out. And again, Reawaken Your Brilliance. You can see who's coming up and all the good stuff we have scheduled. And we will see you all here next week. All right, everyone. Thanks, and have a great evening. Bye now.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, and if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by ThatVidBlasterGuy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.